So, hey, climbers, I hope everyone had a good Wednesday and a great Tuesday session yesterday with Jody. I hope you're excited to be back. Today, we have a new facilitator with us, Erin. So, Erin is a mindset coach, a health educator, and private chef. She does a lot of stuff around nutrition and healthy eating. So, she is going to be leading us through a session on healthy eating habits. So, without further ado, Erin, you can take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to get started here today. So we're going to be talking about simplifying athletic nutrition today and just a little bit about me. Thank you for the intro, but yeah, just a little bit more. I have a certification in culinary nutrition, which is basically taking nutrition principles and being able to put them into our food so we can actually use those principles. I have a specialization in advanced female metabolism and performance nutrition. And as mentioned, I am a health and mindset coach for individuals who struggle with food and habit change. And I am also a private chef for athletes and high performance individuals. So I'm really excited to dive into our topics today. And I am just going to make sure we're good here. Yeah, awesome. So starting with just our outline of what we're going to cover, we're going to be talking about obviously simplifying athletic nutrition, making this stuff a little bit more digestible, easier to work with. And sorry, just changing a setting on this end. Here we go. There we go, that's better. And we're going to be talking about how to actually incorporate this nutrition in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming. We're going to be talking about how to build habits in a smart way that feel supportive and, again, not overwhelming. That's the name of the game here. And we're also going to be talking about how to create some flexible structure so that it feels like we can actually have some momentum with our habits. Sometimes, especially, in current times where we're not always able to have a regular routine, things are up and down and open and closed and it's all over the place. It can feel hard to have some regularity with our habits and our routine. And we're going to talk about some simple ways to be incorporating things so you feel like you have a solid foundation of habits to make you feel your best and perform your best as well. And there will absolutely be space for questions throughout. So please, if anything comes up, just let me know. But to get started, so nutrition for athletics, for high performers, for certain sports and activities can be really overwhelming. There can be so many variables and so many different things that we hear about. We're supposed to focus on, pre-workout and post-workout and this food and that food and getting the right mix of this and the right nutrition for this. And there can be so many different variables and it can feel really overwhelming. So let's break this down to what we actually need to focus on in order to feel our best, perform our best, and feel like we're really supporting our health. So let's make sense of this whole mess here and really get to the heart of what we need to focus on when it comes to athletic nutrition. And the first piece, the foundational base piece, is going to be making sure that we're eating enough. This is the number one, absolutely most important thing. We need to make sure that our body is getting the energy it needs to perform, right? Any sort of sports, activities, exercise, movement, this takes energy, and we need to make sure we're replenishing that properly. So above anything else, that is the number one piece of the pyramid, is making sure we're eating enough. From there, we might want to be taking a look at our macronutrient mixes, and that's something we're going to be talking about today, but making sure, are we getting the right amounts of protein and carbohydrates and things like that? This is where, we take okay, we're making sure we're eating enough. Now it's like we dial in a little bit to, are we getting the right mix of macronutrients to make sure that we're actually, feeding muscle growth and repair and all these things that come into athletics and sports training. From there, we can dial in a little bit more into meal timing. And this is something we'll go into a little bit further in our session in a couple of weeks in pre and post workout nutrition. But looking at things like when we eat, how we fuel around our activities is important and does make a difference. So that can kind of be the next piece of the puzzle. And then on top of that, at the very top of the pyramid, is where we start looking at things like supplementation, specific regimens, specific plans, like foods, all that sort of nitty gritty stuff that we would have seen on the first page there. And where we often get overwhelmed is we start at the top of the pyramid, right? And there's all these different variables and all these different things, when really it's these base pieces we want to look at first that are going to make the biggest difference in how we feel, how we perform, how we are able to move. And as we go up the pyramid, as we're feeling really solid with those base pieces, we can kind of work our way up and maybe get to that point where we're maybe working with a dietitian or somebody like that to really help us dial in. But those are the final pieces of the puzzle. And where we want to focus is on these base pieces. Those pieces are going to give us the most bang for our buck, are going to ensure we get the nutrition our body needs without getting overwhelmed with the minutia of the little nitty gritty. Yeah. And on top of this, I would say there is even a next base, which is making sure that it actually works for you. Because this is what matters more than anything. Of course, we want to be talking about the different foods and the different, mixes of macronutrients and all that. But at the end of the day, it needs to fit your life. It needs to fit your schedule, your needs, your preferences. So we're going to be talking about that today as well. So diving in, I've been talking about, that macronutrient mix. So eating enough. Number one, we need to be making sure that we're fueling regularly and often, but let's talk about this macronutrient piece. What are the building blocks of our plates that we want to be making sure we're getting in so that, we have the fuel for exercise, for sports performance, and that we're also getting the fuel to properly repair and recover, because those things are important too. So let's start with protein. We always hear a lot about protein, and this is going to be a big one in any sort of performance nutrition. Protein is important for a plethora of functions within the body, but here I'm focusing mainly on the sports nutrition piece of it. Really important for our tissue health, muscle growth, hormone production, which can really affect how we perform, how we feel, and that recovery and repair piece. How we recover from exercise, that rest piece is really, really important. That's where our muscles grow, where our body is able to kind of rest and chill out for a minute so we actually have the energy to come back at, the next activity with a ton of energy and feeling great. So protein is really important for all these functions, also really important for our immune system. And especially as we're going into the winter months, want to be making sure that we are protecting our immune system as much as possible as well. So where do we get protein? We can get it from beef, poultry, seafood, pork, eggs, legumes, which is like beans, lentils, that kind of thing, chickpeas, dairy products like Greek yogurt can be great. Milk can be great if it works for your digestion. If it doesn't give you any tummy upsets, your milk can be great. Nuts and seeds, and protein powders as well, if that's something you want to include. Protein powders definitely aren't a necessity by any means, but if you have one you like, if you enjoy supplementing it with it, it can definitely be a helpful piece of the puzzle. In terms of which proteins to prioritize, what type should we be eating? The first piece that we really want to start with is, what do you enjoy? We see it a lot, or at least I see in a lot of sports nutrition, people kind of, forcing themselves to eat a certain way because they think that's what it's supposed to look like, eating a lot of, plain chicken breast and wilty spinach, and it sounds kind of miserable. And so it's really important that we're making sure that we're getting nutrition that we actually do enjoy. So when it comes to picking your protein sources, making sure that you're actually getting curious about what feels good for your body is going to be really important. And we're going to be talking about amounts as well, but I'll kind of keep going on to our next one here. So that's protein. Next up, we have carbohydrates. So this is going to be a really big one as well. I would say protein and carbohydrates, when we're talking athletic nutrition, are kind of our big pieces of the puzzle. They're both really, really crucial for athletic performance. So we want to be making sure to pay attention to those things on our plates for sure. So with carbohydrates, in terms of the exercise, sports nutrition piece, really important for energy and endurance, like actually having the energy to run, to jump, to lift weight, to throw things. All that stuff requires carbohydrates. It's our body's favorite source of fuel. So making sure we're getting carbohydrates is going to be really important. Also really important for muscle growth and for that recovery piece as well. As I keep saying, the repair and recovery is just as important as the actual effort we put into our exercise and sports training. And then gut health as well. We need carbohydrates, that fiber from carbohydrates, for a healthy gut. And gut health is so important to all elements of our performance. It's helpful for, our cognitive focus, like how focused we feel mentally. It is really helpful for our immune systems. It's helpful for our digestive systems, for making sure that we can properly utilize our nutrients. So gut health, really important, and carbohydrates are very helpful for that healthy gut. So carbohydrates play a really big role in our nutrition and what we want to be making sure to include on our plates. Where we can get it from whole grains, like oats, oatmeal, quinoa, rice, like white or brown rice, both fine. We can get it from breads and pastas, root veggies like carrots, potatoes, beets, yams, those kind of things. Legumes, so again, beans, lentils, chickpeas, and then also fruit as well. So these are all great things to be incorporating. Like I said, this is going to be our body's favorite source of fuel. So having carbohydrates integrated throughout our day is really, really important for us feeling our best. And when we're talking about carbohydrates, there's two types we can look at. So we've got complex carbohydrates and we've got simple carbohydrates. And complex carbohydrates are digested more slowly. So think of them as more of like a slow burn of energy, whereas a simple carbohydrate is going to be digested more quickly. So it's kind of more of a quick burst of energy. So it's good to have a mix of both in our diet. Complex carbohydrates are going to be things like those whole grains, things like root vegetables, those kind of things. Legumes are complex carbohydrates. So those are good for sort of lasting energy. You know, including those at our main meals can be helpful to just be feeling kind of fueled all day long. And then including things like fruits, like our breads, things like that, those are going to be digested a little bit more quickly and provide a little bit of a quicker source of energy. So again, we're going to be doing a second session on pre and post workout nutrition, but those kind of carbohydrates can really come into play based on what we're utilizing them for. Are we using them as a, pre-workout snack? We might want something, like a simple carbohydrate, like a banana, something that's going to give us a burst of energy. Whereas again, at our meals, we might want some of those more complex carbs that can really kind of sustain our energy levels for the day. So carbohydrates, very important, as well as that protein piece. So those are going to be the big two. We're going to talk about those a lot, but there are other things that need to go on our plate. So fat is often overlooked in terms of athletic nutrition, performance nutrition. A lot of times we do really focus in on the carbs and protein because those things really do affect our energy levels, muscle growth and repair, all of that. But fat is also really important. We do want to be able to make sure to include it through our day as well. We need it for meeting our daily energy needs. So remember, the bottom of that pyramid is making sure we're eating enough, and fat can be really helpful for that. It's important for hormone production, which affects how we feel, our cravings, our appetite, our energy levels, our brain health. We want to be feeling focused and alert. So fat is really helpful for that. And it's also, again, really helpful for the recovery piece, especially when it comes to inflammation. Inflammation when we're training and we're training hard or working out hard is a really normal part of the process. We want that, but then we also want to make sure we can recover from it. And fat is plays a really helpful role in that as well. So including some fat throughout our day, very important. Where we can get it, nuts and seeds, or like nut butters, like peanut butter, almond butter, those things are great. Seeds like pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, all that, hemp seeds, really, really great as well. Olives and olive oil, coconut or coconut oil, avocado, full fat dairy products are a source of fat. And then fatty fish like salmon and those kind of things can be a source of fat as well. So you'll see there's a lot of hybrid foods. Very few foods are just one thing only. Like, fish can be a source of fat and protein. Coconut can be a source of carbohydrate and fat. Nuts and seeds can be a source of protein and fat. Legumes like beans and lentils can be a source of protein and carbohydrate. There's lots of hybrid foods. So you'll see a lot of crossover in these lists, but these are great places to get our fat here. And then also, there are a couple different kinds of fat we want to look at. So saturated versus unsaturated fat. There's room for both in our diet. Just making sure to include some unsaturated fat is really, really good for overall supporting our health. So unsaturated fats are things like olives, olive oil, avocado, those nuts and seeds are a really good way to get some of that in there. So again, some are a little bit hybrid. Nuts can have a little bit of saturated in there too, but saturated fats are like what we get from dairy, butter, coconut is a saturated fat, or like the kind of fat that we would get in beef, like red meat products, that's saturated fat as well. Both are totally great to include in our diet, but just adding in some more of the unsaturated fats can be really health supportive as well. So we want to make sure to include some fat throughout our days, and we're going to be talking about how to do this in a really manageable way. But like I said, just cruising through the macros here so you have an idea of these foundational pieces, yeah? So veggies and fruit, I give their own little category. So these are a source of carbohydrates, and how much carbohydrate depends on the veggie, but where I'm really including them on their own is micronutrients and also a source of fiber. These are so important. So we talked about protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Those are our macronutrients. Basically, they're called that because macro, we need a lot of them and we get them in large quantities to feel good. Micronutrients are like our vitamins and minerals. We get small amounts of them, but they really do make a huge difference in how we feel. Again, gut health is coming up here, and that's especially the fiber piece that we get from fruits and veggies. It really helps with the gut health piece. And like I said, gut health is so important for performance nutrition. If we want to be feeling our best and performing our best, it's important for cellular health and energy, that repair and recovery piece, and just overall health in general. We know veggies and fruits are good for us. These are good things to include, and making sure that we're adding them in throughout our week is really important. So as we're adding them in, a few things to keep in mind. Getting a variety is really important. It's really helpful for a couple reasons. The fiber component, getting different types of fiber is really great, but the micronutrients, we get a variety of micronutrients depending on the color of veggies that we're eating. There is a nutrient, or I guess, classification of nutrient in vegetables and fruits called polyphenols. And these are basically like the pigments, the colors in different veggies offer a different array of nutrients. So if we're eating a bunch of different colored fruits and veggies, we're actually getting a really great spectrum of nutrients. And we want these micronutrients to feel energized, to feel good. If our cells are getting the fuel they need, we feel more energized, we feel more alert, we feel great, both in and out of the gym. So trying to eat a variety of fruits and veggies in different colors is a really great way to be incorporating these things and just keeping that piece of the nutrition puzzle in mind. So think of it like eating the rainbow. Maybe we can get a yellow banana over here, and then we can get a red tomato over there, and maybe we can get, a yellow potato or an orange or a red berry, all these things. Any like darkly colored veggie, green, purple, like blueberries. All these things are really, really rich in nutrients. So eating the rainbow is great. And then also how to incorporate more of them. So I know fruits and veggies can sometimes feel like a pain to incorporate, whether, we love them or don't love them so much. Sometimes it can feel like a bit of a chore to make sure we're getting enough. So taking the overwhelm of trying to make sure, oh my gosh, I'm getting vegetables and fruit at every single meal and piles of them, we can really simplify it down and just look for little ways. So the first piece is really looking for things that you enjoy. Just like with that protein piece, we want to be eating things that we enjoy eating. Look for fruits and veggies that you enjoy eating. This is really important. If you hate broccoli, don't feel like you have to eat broccoli in order to be healthy. There is a spectrum of ways that we can contribute to our overall health by eating a varied diet. And so if you hate a certain vegetable or fruit, don't feel like you have to force it down. Find the ones you like. Get curious about ways to incorporate things you actually enjoy. Another thing that can make it easier to increase the diversity of the fruits and veggies we're eating, increase the overall amount, can be utilizing frozen products. Frozen fruits and veggies are awesome. They are really cost effective. It makes it easier sometimes to prep things, like throwing, some frozen berries in a smoothie or some frozen veggies in a stir fry can make, the time piece a lot easier, the convenience piece a lot easier. And when veggies and fruits are frozen, they are flash frozen at peak ripeness. So they are just as nutrient dense and can make things just a lot easier. Plus, especially as we go into the winter months and, produce sometimes isn't as available or isn't as, ripe as we would like it to be. Frozen is a great option. If, we love those blueberries, we can get them year round, which is a really lovely thing. So frozen is great. And then another piece is if you're really just, I'm just not a huge veggie fan, looking for ways to just sneak them in, adding them into dishes that you already enjoy. And even just a little bit can go a long way. Can we throw a little bit of something into a sauce? Like maybe we can throw a handful of spinach into a pasta sauce or a pesto. Maybe we can throw a little bit of cauliflower rice into our otherwise big bowl of regular rice, little ways. Maybe we can add an extra veggie to a pizza that we're eating or anything like that. It all counts. It all adds up. These are all little ways that we can be really contributing to the overall, again, diversity of our diet, which is so, so helpful. So just looking for little ways to sneak them in. You don't need to go from 0 to 100 if you're not currently incorporating a lot of fruits and veggies. It's just looking for things you like and looking for little ways to add them in. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about any of the things we've covered so far? I kind of went through quick.
Yeah, we have a few that
Yeah.
I've written down. So
Should I
Jordan,
open the chat or?
most are gonna ask them out loud. So Jordan, you can
perfect.
unmute and you can ask your question.
Okay. I wasn't there yesterday because of swimming, so I'm kind of watching this session tonight. But I do have a question though. With protein and carbs, can you eat those after swimming?
Yes. Yeah. So actually, we like a protein and carb combo is a great option for after a workout. So we are going to go more in depth in a couple weeks on the minutia of good snacks for after workouts, before workouts, and all that. But yes, protein plus a carbohydrate is a perfect after workout snack.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Brittany, you can unmute.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a question because I'm trying to my best to eat healthy and stuff, but when I do eat healthy, I go so far, but then I fall off the wagon, and it's like tempting for carbs and stuff, but I don't know what I would do about that.
Yeah, so we're actually going to talk about building in habits in a way that doesn't feel so overwhelming. That's a really common thing where we feel like we have to do all these things, right? And then we, like you say, we fall off the wagon. So we're actually going to talk about how to build in some structure that can actually be more manageable and sustainable, so you can build more of that foundation. So don't worry.
And what would be like a good, like a protein snack for after like working out? Because I play a lot of sledge hockey.
Okay, so a good protein after a workout, it depends on your preferences, but I mean, we can always do like a Greek yogurt if dairy works okay for you. So Greek yogurt is a great source of protein after a workout. We could do like a protein shake with a protein powder if that's something that you enjoyed. Again, the enjoyment piece is always really important, but a little smoothie. Yeah. A little smoothie could be helpful. We could do like some hard-boiled eggs, or even scrambled eggs can be great for some protein after a workout. So something like that could be good. Does that give you some ideas?
Yeah, that gives us. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Brittany. Erin, we have 8 hands up right now. How many questions do you want to take just to keep on time?
We can keep going here.
Okay.
Let's take
Andrew,
a couple more
you
here,
can
and
unmute.
then we'll go.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So that thing you mentioned in the vegetables, I think it was a P word. Or what was that word? I just have a question about what that kind of means. I was a little confused, like what you mentioned in the vegetables. I think it was a P word or something like that.
Yes, it was polyphenols. So it's
now, what is
basically
polyphenols?
It's just a fancy word for nutrients that we get from vegetables and fruits. So when you see brightly colored pigments, like veggies and fruits are so colorful, there's actually nutrients associated with those colors, and they're called polyphenols. So it's basically a fancy word for fruit and veggie nutrients.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. Leonka, you can unmute.
I'm lactose. What's a good snack for after workout?
For sure. So if you can't do any dairy at all, you could still do something like a hard-boiled egg or scrambled eggs. You could do something like a deli turkey or something like that could be good. Like you could even do like a little deli turkey wrap. That would be a good option. There is protein powder options. You would just go with a dairy-free option. So like a pea protein or a hemp protein could be good. You could also do something like a combo of some nuts and seeds. Like hemp seeds are a really good source of plant protein. So you could throw those in a smoothie or on like a little piece of toast or something like that too.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Leonka. We'll do 2 more questions.
Perfect.
So we will go with Carla. You can unmute.
Hi. The question I have when I work out, is it okay if I have a protein shake after my workout?
Absolutely. That's a great thing to have after your workout because it's really going to help with that
Yeah.
muscle repair. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thanks, Carla. Awesome. So anyone else that has their hands up, we will try to get to later, but we'll move on for now.
Yeah, so that is kind of the summary of what needs to go on our plate. Remember, we had talked about that pyramid, making sure we're eating enough first and foremost. And then from there, kind of looking at the components on our plate. So we just broke down all those components. And then, of course, we also need to mention hydration. Hydration is very important. So just making sure we're drinking enough water throughout the day, especially after workouts, because just like exercise, workouts, sports, activities, they deplenish our energy. We need to refill that. It also dehydrates us. So we just want to make sure we're replenishing that as well. So hydration, can't not mention it. But let's talk about how to actually simplify all these components. So we talked about all the components that go onto our plate. Let's simplify this down so that incorporating them doesn't feel like just a hodgepodge of putting puzzles together. Yeah. So when you're thinking about creating your meals, a really simple way to think about this is PFF: protein, fiber, fat, because these are going to encompass all those components on our plate and make sure we're getting that mix of macronutrients and micronutrients that we need to feel good. So protein, check. Fiber is going to give us both the micronutrients, the carbohydrates, all that kind of piece, because we can get that from fruits and veggies as well as whole grains, and then the fat component as well. So let's look at some simple ways that this could break down, but this is going to be a good way for you just to think about some of your meals. It doesn't have to be every single meal. You don't need to, go to every single meal and snack and make sure it has all these pieces. This is just a way to start looking at the components to make sure you're just checking some of these boxes. So what does a PFF meal look like, say, for breakfast? This could look like scrambled eggs on whole wheat toast with cheese. So we've got our eggs as our protein, our whole wheat toast as our fiber, and that cheese is our fat. We've got a smoothie with nut butter, banana, spinach, and protein powder. So our nut butter can be our fat and a little bit of protein. We've got a protein powder as the main source of protein. And then we've got banana and spinach as our fiber. And then the banana is also some carbohydrate there too. So we're hitting all these boxes. We could do a Greek yogurt with berries and a sprinkle of nuts. Again, our Greek yogurt is our protein. Our berries are the fiber. And the nuts and seeds could be our fat. Could do a mixed veggie omelet with salsa and guacamole, some avocado there for our fat. We've got some veggies in there for the fiber and the eggs for the protein. Or we could do like an oatmeal. So our oatmeal is going to be our fiber there. Some diced apple as well is going to be fiber. And then we've got almonds and hemp seeds coming together to be a protein and fat component there. So simple breakfast ideas. For lunch, we could do sandwiches. We've got that turkey in there for our protein, a whole grain bread as our fiber, some veggies, some cheese on there for fat, veggie soup with lentils and rice. So the lentils can be our protein. We've got rice in there for fiber and our veggies and all that. And then we could do it with like an olive oil as the fat to make sure that's covered off there. You can see we've got a salad option here. Oops. Go back one. We could do like a snack plate with hummus and veggies and crackers. So you can kind of see how these are all coming together to be options for simple meals. And we can just kind of check off those boxes and make sure that we're hitting all those pieces so that we're getting the fuel that our body needs. And it also comes together in a satisfying package. Yeah. Egg salad on a whole grain wrap would be great too. We've got eggs for protein. You could have your mayo in there for some fat on that whole grain wrap for some fiber. And dinner, stir fries can work really well because we've got the veggies, the rice, we can cook it in some oil. We've got like pastas. We can throw some veggies into a pasta dish with some protein like shrimp, a little bit of olive oil, cheese, and that's going to fill it out into a nice protein, fiber, fat meal. Like a curry with some cauliflower rice and naan. You could do fajitas with some steak or chicken or whatever protein you wanted with your veggies on whole grain tortillas. You could do a noodle stir fry with tofu, veggies, and cashews. So you can see how we're starting to think about our plates as these little building blocks, but we can really simplify them down. So protein, fiber, fat, that's going to cover off so many of your bases. Sometimes your fiber is going to be coming more in the form of like whole grains, things like that. Sometimes it may be coming in the form of veggies. Sometimes it's going to be both, but it gives you this good mix of nutrition without having to think of all these different boxes to check, right? We only have to think about 3 things and we're probably going to be covering our bases. So protein, fiber, fat. PFF is a great way to look at your meals. Like I said, you don't have to do this for every single meal. You don't need to overwhelm yourself, but just starting to think of your plate as that building blocks can really go a long way towards making some meals that can really make you feel your best when working out and exercising and all that. So the other thing we can keep in mind is in terms of, what foods are feeling best for us? What protein sources do we like? How much protein do we want? How much carbohydrate do we want? We can figure out what's going to feel best for our bodies and our own performance with something called biofeedback. So biofeedback is just a fancy word for our body giving us signals, for our body talking to us. Basically, all the things we eat, all the things we do, our body can respond and let us know, is this working for me? Is this not working for me? So just a few things that we can check in around. I have a little acronym for it. It's called PACES. So performance. How did your workout feel? How are you feeling in your workout, after your workout? Like, do you feel great when you are, in like a sports activity and during your exercise, all that kind of stuff? What is your performance like? Is it feeling good? Are you feeling energized and focused? If so, that's a good sign that your nutrition is working for you. And the amounts of those things, the amount of protein you have, the carbohydrate, all that is probably working well. How is your appetite? Are you feeling satisfied for the most part throughout the day, regular? Same with cravings. Do you feel like your cravings are relatively normal? If so, you're probably eating enough and probably eating a good mix of things. If you're finding you're really hungry, we want to up the protein and possibly the carbohydrates. Or again, if your cravings are feeling really strong, upping just the amount of food that you're eating, especially protein, can be really helpful there. So that can be another way your body talks to us, is through our appetite and our cravings. Energy levels. Where are your energy levels at? Are they feeling really great? You're feeling steady all day. You're feeling good in your workouts. That's a good sign that you're eating, a good mix of things that's working for your body right now. And sleep. How are you sleeping? Do you have a good night's sleep? Do you wake up feeling pretty good? Do you get, have energy in the morning and, get tired at night? If those things are feeling regular, there's a good chance that the way you're eating is working for your body. We're all really individual. And even though these building blocks are all, the same for us, the protein, the carbs, the fats, all that, how they work together, how much we should be eating is going to be really individual to you. So the places that I would play with first, if one of these elements, is feeling off, if your appetite is, really strong and we need to be eating more, or your performance is dipping a bit, we need to be eating more. Starting with protein and carbohydrate can really help, because again, those are going to really fuel activity. But then also making sure that there is some fat on your plate so that you're actually getting a well-rounded plate. Again, that PFF, protein, fiber, fat, really, really helpful. But really starting, especially with the protein and carbohydrates, if you're finding that you are really tired or really hungry, or, you're not recovering as quickly after a workout, those things can be helpful. So this is just a little acronym to remember if you're kind of being your own detective with this stuff and really trying to figure out, what are the amounts of these things that work out for me? We actually get a chance to tune into our body and say, what does work best for me? Because it's going to be individual to you and your activity levels and what kind of activities you're doing, right? And with all this stuff, I always want to reiterate that this stuff is a practice. How we fuel, creating healthier habits, it's a practice that we go into. And I want you to treat it just like your training, just like your workouts. It can be different every day. Sometimes, some days what we need is a more relaxed, like easygoing workout. Sometimes we feel more energized. And it's the same with finding what works for our body in terms of nutrition. It's kind of a practice we show up for, and we become a detective of like, what's helping my energy right now? What's feeling good for my stomach right now? What's really satisfying me right now? So really treating it more as just a practice that you're showing up for, rather than something that you're supposed to just get perfect right now. And, it's set in stone. Like, this stuff can be more of a work in progress, and you can really just show up for it like a practice, just like you would with any sort of athletic performance pursuits. So just being a detective with this stuff, if something's feeling off, don't be afraid to play. Don't be afraid to ask questions and be like, maybe I'll up my protein a bit, or maybe I'll try different food here, or maybe I'll see if there's a way I can make this more satisfying. Being your own detective can be a really fun way to turn this into a skill that you're building over time and make athletic nutrition something that you actually, you don't feel like it has to be so rigid and you have to get it perfectly. It's just a practice that you're showing up for. In terms of food quality, so obviously a lot of the sources that I mentioned in these areas are whole food sources, right? Like we talked about fruits and veggies and whole grains and all that kind of stuff. But don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It doesn't need to be this perfect whole foods nutrition. Obviously, we do our best with this stuff. We know that whole foods do make us feel good, but if we need convenience or packaged options or takeout things, or we aren't totally in control of where all of our meals are coming from, that's fine. We just need to do our best with it, see if we can be checking off that protein, fiber, fat piece as often as we possibly can, and just do our best with that. We don't need to feel like if we aren't eating perfectly that we can't have optimal performance or that we can't feel great. We absolutely can. So don't stress if you feel like things aren't as perfect as you think they're supposed to be. There's so much wiggle room with this stuff. And making sure that the satisfaction and enjoyment piece are there as well. Remember, we don't want to be trying to force ourselves to eat things that we don't like. So making sure that there are things on your plate that you enjoy eating is going to make this whole process so much more sustainable, right? We're so much more likely to keep showing up for healthy eating, for foods that support us, if we actually enjoy the process. So making sure to include tastes and textures that you really enjoy. And then also the convenience and practicality piece. I kind of mentioned it with the food quality, but it's okay if we, need some convenience options, some fast food options, some options that maybe we think are not the healthiest. That's okay. We do the best with where we're at, and that is plenty. And the more we can lean into that, again, it's that practice, right? We can show up more frequently and make slow changes over time where we're capable of it. So it's all a practice. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to do questions, or should I go through smart habit building here?
Up to you. We have 7 or 8 with their hands up right now, so we can do a few if you want, or we can keep going and do them at the end.
Let's do a couple and then we'll keep going.
Okay. Jordan Tyson, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay. So for protein, I do avocado toast for breakfast. I can do a boiled egg, poached egg, or sunny side up egg. We have to stay strong.
That would be perfect. That's actually what I eat every morning is avocado toast with eggs. So like a poached egg or scrambled or however you like it would be perfect. It's a perfect way to add some protein to it.
For
Awesome.
salad, how about for salad greens, we can do shrimp, boiled eggs, or salmon.
Absolutely. Those are all great options.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Alex, you can unmute and ask your question.
So you must be Erin.
Yes.
Yeah. I got a few of feedbacks I want to tell you about. I went to Subway and I just picked vegetables for my sandwich as well.
Awesome.
And yeah, so my mom just bought me the smoothie, has a bunch of fruit inside of it. And so I just had the smoothie for a drink as well.
Awesome. That's a great way to get lots of fruits and veggies in.
Yeah, about that, regarding the protein, I don't mind the scrambled eggs because it tastes good.
Yeah, scrambled eggs are a great option for protein.
Thank you, Alex. Casey, you can ask your question.
Yeah, for breakfast, I usually have like a bagel with butter and jam and a yogurt usually for breakfast.
That's perfect. Yeah, some yogurt is a great way to get some protein there. That's awesome.
Thank you, Casey. Sarah, you are going to be the last question before we move on, so you can unmute.
Hey, my question is, where do mushrooms fit in the food category?
Mushrooms would fit in like the fruits and vegetables category.
Okay. So they're good, like the good fiber or good protein.
Great fiber. There actually is some protein in mushrooms, but they're more for the fiber component, and the micronutrients component are
Okay.
great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mushrooms are awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Awesome. So we'll go on to some habit building stuff now. So we've talked about the components that can go onto our plate to make us feel great. But how do we actually incorporate these things? How do we actually make some shifts in our habits that don't feel overwhelming? So let's talk about just some of the pillars of when we're trying to make changes. How do we go about that in a way that actually can be sustainable, so we don't just want to give up on it? Yeah. So the first piece, when we're doing or when we're picking a new habit or a couple habits to build, we want to keep it simple and specific. So we don't want to take on too much at once. We don't want to say, oh, Erin said I have to have, the PFF meal, and now I have to have every meal of my week has to be that. So that's taking on a lot, right? Maybe we start with, something simple. We dial it back a little bit. So maybe we aim to have, 3 of those meals in a week or 4 of those meals in a week. So making sure that you're not taking on too much change at once is really important. We want to keep it simple and manageable, because if we take on too much, we just get exhausted and kind of want to quit, right? It's a lot to take on. So keeping it simple, and then also picking something measurable can be really helpful, just so that we actually have something to focus on. So rather than saying, I'm going to try to include more of those PFF meals, saying I'm going to include 3 of them this week. That can be a helpful way. You don't have to make it really measurable if that's feeling overwhelming, but it can just be something that helps us sort of actually make some tangible progress forward. But keeping it really simple is the key piece here. Starting where you're at, also really important. If right now, just adding in vegetables or adding in protein is like a lot, then don't feel like you have to go from 0 to 100. So like I said, don't feel like all of a sudden you have to go overboard on protein and you need to be doing protein shakes and this protein here. Like, just start with where you're at. Maybe add protein to 1 snack that day, or that, a couple meals that week. Start where you're at. It's much easier to build in habits that stick when we start slow. Even though sometimes we get impatient and we think, oh, I need to do it all right now, it's way better and way more likely to actually stick when we start slow and meet ourselves where we're at. So if right now you're like, I'm including no veggies at all, then don't say that, you need to include veggies at every meal. Maybe it's, I will include a vegetable at 4 meals this week, or something really simple like that. And we're going to go through a lot of examples as I go here too, so you have some ideas. Making it enjoyable. So I know I keep coming back to the satisfaction piece, this enjoyment piece, because it's so important. So if we're trying to incorporate a habit that we don't like, it sounds miserable, we don't want to do it, then we're probably not going to do it. So pick something that you could actually make enjoyable, even if it is a little bit of a challenge. So, if we're looking at including something like more vegetables or more protein, picking foods you actually like, picking foods that don't feel too overwhelming to prepare or to get access to, like making it something that can be an enjoyable part of your routine is really important. And feeding into the next piece, incorporating it into your current routine is really helpful. So this is where we get into something called habit stacking. And basically all that is pairing a new habit with something you're already doing. So this doesn't go for every single new habit that you're doing. In some cases, it can make sense. So say we're wanting to drink more water because we know hydration is very important, and we are looking for ways to incorporate it into our current routine. We could pair it with something we're already doing. So say we brush our teeth every morning. Maybe we make the habit, okay, this week I'm going to drink a glass of water before I brush my teeth every morning, because we have a habit we're already doing. It's already ingrained in us, and we can just add the water piece into it. So looking for little things like that can be a helpful way to incorporate something into our routine. Maybe we have the same dinner every night and we decide, oh, I'm going to incorporate, this vegetable in a few nights a week, something I'm already doing. I'm just going to throw an extra veggie in there. I'm just going to throw a little extra protein on there. So that can be a really helpful way to make habit change and habit shifts a little less overwhelming. And then letting it be flexible. It doesn't need to be perfect. And we're going to talk about how do we build habits in a way that's flexible, but just know it doesn't need to be perfect by any means. And it's okay if there's certain days where habits feel overwhelming or you feel like you didn't show up for them the way you wanted to. That's fine. We're human. This is a normal part, you know, not all days do we feel 10 out of 10 and able to tackle it all. Some days we feel tired. Some days we have a lot going on and it's too overwhelming to take on much, and that's okay. We just get back to it when we feel good. So don't stress about being perfect with it, and don't be afraid to let it be flexible. And we're going to talk about how do we make that flexible. But again, just coming back to this idea that this is all a practice. Eating healthy, eating foods that support our athletic performance and our overall health is just a practice. Some days we show up, we feel great, we feel like we nail our habits. Other days it's a little bit more wobbly. Maybe we don't hit them as much, but it's a skill we're building, not like a place we're supposed to get to. We're not supposed to just wake up one day perfect at all this stuff. It's just stuff we slowly build towards, just like in your workouts, just like in sports. You know, we slowly get better and better over time. We just keep practicing. So we don't need to be perfect with it at all. So always keeping that in the back of our minds. So, some smart habit building examples. I'll do these really quick. So say we want to build a habit, and these are just examples. You can fit them into whatever habit you're looking to build, but I just wanted to give you some quick ones. So say we're looking to include more protein. Maybe we make the habit as simple as we always have our favorite protein snack on hand. Like maybe we have a protein bar we love, or, you know, like a hard-boiled egg thing that we like, whatever it is. Making sure to just always have that stuff on hand could be a really easy way to build that routine into our day-to-day. Say we want to, you know, have more home-cooked meals. We could say, all right, once a week, I'm going to try a new recipe, or ask somebody to cook with me, or maybe try, you know, making or like adding something to a favorite like takeout option. Like maybe I make a side salad or something for it. So see how these are all just really, really simple things that we include rather than overhauling all of our habits at once. Or say we want to include more veggies. Again, can we just include it in a meal we already enjoy? You know, can we look for ways to sneak a veggie in? And maybe we just do it for a few meals a week rather than feeling like we have to do it every day at first. So really simple, should be somewhat enjoyable, should fit into your current routine, and you can allow it to be flexible. These are all just things we want to keep in mind when we're trying to build new habits. So how do we actually build some routine with this? It's something I call flexible structure. This is something I teach all my clients and I work with all my clients on. And it's basically a way to commit to a few regular practices that are going to support our health, going to support our performance, and still leave space for flexibility, for balance. And this is how we build a foundation, because like I said, we're human. Some days, you know, we feel 10 out of 10 and we can tackle a lot, and some days not so much. And having some flexible structure ensures that we can show up for habits that make us feel good without feeling like we need to do it all, without feeling like we need to tackle it all perfectly. It gives us some wiggle room. And this is a really great way to build healthier eating habits, build more nutrition into our plate without it being exhausting. So there's a couple ways that I teach how to do this. I have a couple methods. The first is the pillars method. So this, I want you to think of these as like pillars that are going to prop up the rest of your day. So these are really good for creating some solid consistency with a few key habits. So what we do is we pick 1 to 3 habits that we're really going to focus on to build. And again, keeping that smart habit building in mind. So it should meet you where you're at. It should be simple. It should be something that you can include in your current routine. But picking 1 to 3, these are going to be your daily or your weekly pillars. So these are things that you're going to do all the time, or 80%, because it doesn't have to be perfect, but consistently. And it's the rest of your nutrition, the rest of your habits can be flexible around it. So some days, you know, doing those 3 things or 2 things or 1 thing, whatever you pick, doing those pillars is going to be all you do for your nutrition. And the rest is just wishy-washy, whatever. And some days maybe you have more energy to do more, but see how that allows you to kind of have some flexibility while it's like, okay, this 1 to 2, 3 habits, these I show up for, and the rest can be flexible. And this can be really good, you know, as we're, you know, going into winter here, and sometimes our schedules are a little more wonky. There's holidays and all this. We have these habits that we can keep coming back to that are going to build a strong foundation, and the rest of our stuff can just be flexible and balanced around them. So some examples, just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. So maybe we want to focus on hydration and adding in some veggies, things like that. We could make our 3 pillars. I'm going to drink 2 liters of water. I'm going to have one big salad or smoothie, and I'm going to have a protein rich snack on hand. So like a protein bar or something. And that would be if you had 3. You could also just pick one of those and really focus on, say we just want to focus on the water piece. I'm going to drink 2 liters of water like every day, and have that wiggle room, that 80% rule. So you miss a day, it's fine. Just get right back to it the next day. But see how that can just become a pillar. It's like, I drink lots of water. And the more we show up for that, the more it becomes automatic. But that's why we want to start small. It's better to start small and build up. So if taking on like all 3 of these things is, whoa, overwhelming, just pick one. Just pick one thing to do and see how much you can show up for it over the next 30 days. And just show up for that and don't worry about the rest of the habits. We can always add on. So this could be an example of your 3 pillars. Eating 1 meal at home each day or each week could work well. Including a source of protein at breakfast could be a great pillar. Adding a complex carbohydrate to your dinner. So like some steamed potatoes or baked root veggies or something like that, some rice, anything like that. Those could be pillars as well. So basically, these are all habits I'm just pulling from the stuff we talked about earlier. But you can pick 1 to 3 and just see how that feels. And you want to pick things that feel good for you to build on. And like I said, if it feels good to just pick one right now and just focus on that for a while, do that. It's far better to build that foundation strong. You could also do like a weekly pillar. So maybe each week you aim to eat 3 different colors of fruits and veggies just throughout the week. It can almost be like a little game, like, oh, have I eaten my 3 this week? Or maybe you try one new recipe a week or from a new restaurant each week, maybe with some healthy options. Or maybe we swap a refined carbohydrate for an unrefined version. Like maybe we swap a white bread for a whole wheat bread one week. These are all things that can be examples of pillars in our day. So it's basically, we're just picking 1 to 3 habits to commit to, and we can give ourselves like, okay, I'm going to commit to these for just 30 days. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay if you miss days, but those are the only habits we focus on, rather than having a million things to focus on. Like, oh, I'm supposed to add veggies and I'm supposed to drink water and I'm supposed to add protein. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do that. This just simplifies it. 1 to 3 habits, see how much you can do over the 30 days and then build from there. That makes sense? So that's the pillars method with it. The second way that we can do this is the 3-2-1 method. So this is really good if you need a lot of flexibility. If you feel like, either you get overwhelmed really easily, your energy levels kind of are up and down, or sometimes you're just busy or don't have time or space to focus on things. This method works really well for building habits in a way that is so flexible that you're still moving forward. It's really similar to the pillars method in that we're going to pick a few habits, but we're just going to give them a little bit of wiggle room. So we're going to pick 3 to start with, and then, we'll do those 3 habits on days that we feel really good. We'll pick 2 of them to do on days where we need a little bit more wiggle room. We just don't have as much energy, and just 1 for the days where we don't have time, or we don't have energy, or we just don't have the desire to do anything. We just stick to 1. So this way we're at least showing up for one thing that makes us feel good every day, but we have this wiggle room to take on more or less. So some examples of what this looks like. So say our 3, days we have lots of energy, we're going to drink 2 liters of water, we're going to add protein to our breakfast and have a healthy snack after exercise. On the days where we have sort of medium energy, medium space, maybe we'll just drink the water and have the healthy snack. Don't worry about the breakfast piece. And on a day where we're just super busy, we're just going to worry about the water piece. So see how that kind of gives you more flexibility. So you can pick 3 habits, but then say, okay, but on days where I don't feel that good, I'm okay with only doing 2. And on days where I really don't feel good, I'm okay with only doing 1. And we can also do that. We can even step the habits down and make them easier. So that, say, on days you feel great, your 3 habits could be, I add veggies to dinner, I have protein at every meal and snack, and I drink a ton of water. And then on medium days, maybe I don't worry about protein at every meal and snack. I just have it at every meal and I drink a little bit less water. I don't need to drink a ton. And then on the really, busy days or low energy days, I just worry about having protein at 1 meal. And see how much flexibility that gives us, where we can still move forward. It doesn't have to be overwhelming and it doesn't have to be perfect, but we're still moving forward. We're still showing up for these habits. And even though it sounds so simple, the more we can cement in these basic habits, the easier it is to build on them and actually have a foundation where we don't quit after a while, right? Where we actually keep this stuff going. So those are just some examples of ways we can add in some flexible structure. If it feels helpful to you, you can use that. If it doesn't, if it feels like, I don't know, this is too much going on, that's fine. Just pick like a couple habits that feel good to play around with, or play around with some meals, or maybe you just kind of experiment with the PFF meals right now. Or maybe you just practice with seeing, well, how does this food make me feel? How does this food make me feel? There's no wrong way to do this. These are just all the building blocks, right? So if right now you want to start really small, I mean, you can come back to this session anytime and when you're ready to build up from there. So these are all just options to help you hopefully take the overwhelm out of the nutrition piece and make it a little bit easier to support your body and your athletic pursuits. So just to summarize, and then we can get to all of our questions here. Performance nutrition doesn't need to be so overwhelming, right? At the end of the day, we need to make sure we're eating enough. And then from there, we can dial in. We can, take a look at what's on our plate and play with those things. Do we need more protein? Do we need more carbohydrates? From there, we can look at the meal timing stuff. And we're going to do that in our next session in a couple weeks. So we'll talk about that next. But don't worry about getting caught up in too much of the overwhelm. It's those pieces that are going to give us the most bang for our buck. And then keeping those foundational pieces in mind while working with your own individual needs. The most important thing is that this makes sense for you, that it fits your needs, your schedule, your preferences, like all these things. It has to work for you. So don't be afraid to play with it and be flexible and really work it to your preferences. This stuff is going to be things you want to sustain and keep doing if you like doing it and if it fits your life. And going slow and steady when making changes and allowing for that flexibility is just so important as a part of this. I know it can get overwhelming, or it can feel like we need to do it all right now. And I've gone through a lot of information today. So maybe your head is like, there's so much. Slow and steady, one thing at a time is more than enough, and it adds up quicker than you think. And again, treating it all as a practice. This is the most important part, right? It's just a practice, just like your workouts, just like training. You'll get better at it every time you show up. And not every practice is perfect, right? Sometimes we don't feel the best about it, but we just keep showing up and we will build these skills over time. Yeah. So, questions?
Awesome. So I'm just going to start by saying, if you do need to leave right now, you are able. The passcode for tonight is clownfish. It is in the chat. So you can write that down and track it on your climb. But otherwise, we are going to get to a few questions. Erin, I'm just going to start with one that was written to me. And it was, do you have recommended amounts of macronutrients for the athletes?
So I don't have like hard and fast numbers because it really depends on what kind of activity you're doing, the levels of activity, but starting with emphasis on protein and carbohydrate can be really helpful. Like maybe anywhere from 30 to 40% carb, 30 to 40% protein, and the rest fat. So that's kind of a general jumping off point. But not hard and fast numbers, because again, it's going to be specific to the individual. But that's where we come back to the biofeedback piece as well. Like if you're feeling really hungry, if you're feeling like your performance is suffering, if you're feeling like your cravings are really high or your energy is really low, bumping up, starting with like the protein and maybe the carbohydrates, and just playing with those ratios to see what feels best for you.
Awesome. So we'll get to a few questions. Okay, Danielle, you can unmute.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't eat a lot of meat and I have low iron, so are there like some good Veggie that I could still get the recommended dose of iron I need to complete the protein?
Yeah, so for iron, it can be a little tricky because it depends on how your body absorbs it. So there's basically two kinds of iron. There's the iron that we get from animal sources and the iron we get from plant sources. So we can get iron from things like spinach, leafy greens, but it depends on if your body's able to utilize it, because we use that iron a little bit differently. So definitely like leafy greens and a variety of veggies can be a good way to supplement iron, but it's not a bad idea to work with a doctor to make sure that your body is actually utilizing that iron, because if not, you may need iron supplementation.
Thank you, Erin, for a great
You're welcome.
session.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Danielle. Lori, you can ask a question.
Hello, Erin.
Hi.
My doctor keeps diagnosing me with like acid reflux, but my biggest problem is I have a tendency to want to eat after dinner. So is there a suggestion on what will help me so that I don't get tempted to want to eat junk food, or because I'm hooked on a place called the Chopped Leaf.
Oh yeah.
So I'm hooked on salad. I think it's the Sunrise.
Okay.
But if you do get that salad, do not get the apples. Get blueberries, because the apples are Granny Smith and so sour.
Oh yeah. So for snacking at night, are you actually hungry, or are you just like craving treats?
I am hungry. My stomach's like, eat, eat, eat. And I'm like,
yeah,
sleep, sleep, sleep.
So one of the first things I would do is make sure that you're eating enough during the day. So are you like making sure that you're including protein on your chopped leaf salad, making sure you're including protein throughout the day? That's where I would start, because we want to make sure that you're actually eating enough during the day, because sometimes that's why we get hungry at night, is because we haven't actually gotten enough and our body is like, we're still hungry over here. So making sure I would really focus on adding protein to all your meals and snacks. Like you can build to that over time if you aren't doing it yet, but adding in more protein. And then from there, if you're finding, okay, now I'm satisfied and I'm just craving snacks, just looking for some options that are, again, have a little bit of protein in them and are like smaller amounts, because with acid reflux, it's that if we have a large amount of food in our stomach when we go to bed, that's a lot of times where we get the issue. So something that's like protein rich that can kind of fill us up in a smaller volume could be a better nighttime snack option. But where I would start first is adding protein and making sure there's protein in all your meals and snacks throughout the day first.
Okay, yeah, because like tonight my roommate made lasagna, and for once in my whole life, I was like, my stomach said to me, stop. He's like, do you want some more? I'm like, no, I'm good. And my stomach actually wouldn't let me eat anymore. And I'm like, something weird's going on if it's not letting me eat.
It's full.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori. We'll get to 3 more questions. So Jessica, you can unmute.
Okay, my question is, like, is there good, like, I get the meal good food, just wondering, and also, I do get hungry at nighttime as well.
What was the first question?
I do get good food. You know the meal good food?
Oh yeah, good food.
Yeah, I get that, and then, like, maybe about 2 hours later, I'm like craving like popcorn.
Yeah.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, so popcorn can be a great snack actually, because it's a little bit lighter. Like it won't, especially before bed. There's nothing wrong with snacking at night. It's more when it interrupts our sleep that it's a problem. And so popcorn can be a nice option because it's not quite as heavy feeling in our stomachs. Yeah. So popcorn's a great option. Again, kind of the same thing too. Making sure that you're eating enough throughout the day, and maybe adding in some protein can help if you're actually hungry at night too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Laura, you can ask your question.
Okay. With the pillars method you talked about, which one of those would you say is the best to recommend?
As far as like what habit to choose first?
Yeah, like you have the
yeah. So when you're choosing your habit, go back to the smart habit building of like which ones actually feel enjoyable for you to add. So if adding in veggies or something just sounds miserable right now, then don't pick something with veggies, you know? But if like adding in water sounds really doable, and like that would be a great one. They're all good habits. It's more just a matter of what you want to focus on and what's going to feel good for you.
Because what about, because I know veggies and fruits can also have sugar content, I think.
Yeah.
So, and also like calorie intake as well. So like, how do you
fruits
watch
and veg-
yourself with all that?
Fruits and veggies, I would not worry about sugar content with fruits and veggies. Like there's so many nutrients and fiber that we're getting with fruits and veggies. It's very different than if we're eating like bags of gummy bears. Yeah. So fruits and veggies are awesome. Don't worry about the sugar in fruits and veggies. These are great things to include. And they're also like, if we're eating things like fruits and veggies, because we have that fiber in there, they're actually more filling. So if we're talking about calories and making sure we're not overeating, fiber is a great way to make sure that we're actually filling up. Whereas, you know, we could eat like a tub of gummy bears and not really feel full. But if we're eating a lot of fruits and veggies, it's a lot more likely to keep our calories in a place that feels good for our body.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura. Awesome. So we are going to end it there for tonight. Erin is going to be returning for week 8. So if you guys like tonight's session, you can see her again. And then also, if you guys do want any homework, you already are sharing a lot of your meals in the Facebook group. Try to share one that is a PFF, so one with protein, fiber, and fat, and see if you can isolate which one is which and share your meals. So on that note, we'll end it for tonight. Thanks again, Erin, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Bye, everyone.